So today I'm potting the Whitkin broad beans. I've decided I'm probably going to do 10 pots in the end just to start with, and maybe do some more if I change my mind. Already got some of the seeds out. As you see, they just look very much like dried broad beans. So let's just move a few things out of the way. Usual thing, a couple of pots full of soil. They've been going in the greenhouse for a few days just to try and warm them up. So it's soil, compost, eggshells, tea leaves, banana peels and some Epsom salt. And all I do with these is I simply pop the seeds into the soil, as you can see, like that. And then what I then do is I'll just give them an extra little push down, and so they're a bit further in, and then cover them up with some soil. Also just pop a little bit of soil, extra soil on top, pat them down. So there you go. I'll put the labels in and they're ready for going in the greenhouse. Hi, just doing a quick update on broad beans. So these have now been going for exactly 3 weeks actually. So you can see they're all growing quite nicely. All at seedlings. I planted 10 of them, so I've actually got, at the moment I'd say I've got 6 really good looking ones. 2 which are just, I can actually make out, if you're right above them you can just make out that they're about to poke through the soil. And then this rogue one right at the front here doesn't seem to be doing very well at all. But I'll just keep an eye on it because they've really sort of shot up. There was not really any sign of these probably only about 4 days ago. So you'll see how large some of them are really, and they were only just about showing 4 days ago. So I'll keep an eye on those, probably a good few weeks still until I'd be even thinking about trying to plant them out. So this is where I'll be planting out my broad beans. It's not the sunniest of spots in the garden, but I've got one area that I have for the veg patch, so this unfortunately is where the broad beans have to go. I grow them up alongside a fence, so I've actually put some netting up. I grow it in troughs, so what I'll do is I'll actually do probably 5 broad bean plants to a trough here, and I will then, as they start to grow, I'll be fastening them onto the netting. I'll just take you in for a slightly closer look. So you see there's the soil. These are about 80 centimeters wide, these troughs, and I said I'll do probably 5 of them to a trough. You'll see also that I just have the wooden things underneath. That's because rather than put them straight onto these old metal shelves that I've got, I just stand them on a bit of wood to help the drainage a little bit, and then I'll just simply fasten them up the netting as they grow. Here's some pictures I took last year in my veg patch, just to give you an idea of what I'll be doing during the year. I'll update the videos as I go through this year. So before planting them outside, I get them accustomed to the weather. I do this with most things by bringing them out of the greenhouse during the day and putting them back in overnight, especially if it's going to be a cold night. So you can see last year that I brought out my broad beans and I planted 5 plants per trough. I still need to fix my netting near the fence, so I put them in the trough and use garden canes just to support them until I can move them to their resting place. As you grow, they will need to support them, as most varieties grow to about 4 feet tall, and less of the dwarf varieties, which may only grow to about 1.5 foot. I'll also do a second batch of broad beans, running about 2 to 3 weeks behind the first batch, just to extend the period of harvesting. They call this successional sewing, and I do it with many of the things that I grow. So once you plant them out, it's important to make sure you keep on top of your weeding. Watering probably isn't needed until the white and black flowers start to appear. If the weather does turn dry as the pods are swelling, you'll need to really look at giving them a good water. So at some point you'll want to pinch off the top 3 inches of the stem, about 7.5 centimeters. You'd normally do this as a first beans form, as it helps an earlier harvest, as the plant energy is ultimately used in growing the beans themselves rather than growing a bigger plant. It can also help reduce the chance of backfly. So you can start to harvest the pods once they're about 2 to 3 inches long. I normally wait until I can really see the shape of the beans within the pods. This picture was taken about a week before I harvested last year. The pods here are about 3 to 4 inches, and you can clearly see the shape of the beans inside the pod. I pick a few of mine early and leave some of them on the plant. Generally speaking, I'll harvest most of them over about 4 weekends, and I cook them as soon as I pick them. Whilst you look at these last couple of pictures, I'll just talk you through a few things on broad beans. So generally March to April are the prime sowing months, but you could stretch that a little either side. I always sow them in individual pots. Germinating ought to take them about 7 to 14 days, but you'll have seen mine took about 3 weeks this year. I put this down to some cold evenings in the last few weeks where I know the temperature got below -3 degrees Celsius in the greenhouse a couple of times. You'll probably be looking to plant out during May with crops ready from June through to August, depending on when you plant out and how quickly they grow. My broad beans recommend a spacing of 9 inches, but you'll see that in the troughs mine are only 4 to 5 inches apart when I put them in. It's a bit tight, but it's worked for me okay over the last few years. I've also read that the typical time from sowing to harvesting is about 2.5 months. Personally, in my experience, it's normally about 2 to 3 months after I plant them out. Anyway, I hope that's all helped. I'll update the videos as I go along this year, so remember to check back and see the progress of this year's crop.